My dear friends, today we have some pretty important Boba Fett news. I've not seen many people talk about this just yet, so this is something of a breaking story. In a time where Star Wars is pretty much on a down, Temuera Morrison gave us an update for the Book of Boba Fett Season 2. In a brand new interview with News Hub New Zealand, he was asked by an enthusiastic Kate Roger when fans can expect Season 2 of the Disney Plus show. Dismayed but bluntly honest, Tem replied, "There is no Season 2, not yet." He says he's waiting to hear back from Lucasfilm, but due to Disney's budget cuts and reshaping, as well as the fact Dave Filoni has an all-encompassing Mandalorian movie, Book of Boba Fett Season 2 is likely never gonna happen. He acknowledges this, but goes on to say that fans have been very kind and lively in their request for a second season of his Mandalorian spin-off. But he does make it clear, we should not expect it. Tem goes on to praise Ming-Na Wen and talks about their chemistry as a duo on set. It's also worth pointing out, he recently attended Comic-Con in Tokyo, Japan, with younger Boba Fett actor Daniel Logan, and is still a huge fan and advocate for his character on the small and big screens. In fact, Temuera Morrison fully expects to return in Dave Filoni's film, likening it to The Avengers. And another thing to note, my dear Mandalorians, considering The Mandalorian Season 4 starts filming sometime in February, hopefully this means the reason Tem is shutting down Book of Boba Fett 2 possibilities is because he already knows the Daimyo story continues in Season 4. And in my opinion, that is the best case scenario. And a lot of fans have been wondering, what's going on with Mandalorian Season 4? There have been reports saying it's going to be a movie, others have been contrarian and doubled down on the fact it's remaining a show on Disney+. The truth? Honestly, no one knows. I would wager it's gonna stay a series until Dave's film, but we know it's already written, and bestspinbulletin.com have said it's gonna start production in the next couple of months, maybe sooner. I can't imagine them snubbing Boba Fett once again. We need him to appear. We want to see what's going on with Fennec Shand, Black Chrysanthemum, and how the next stage of Boba Fett's story builds on what was set up in the Book of Boba Fett, but also The Mandalorian Season 2. Is he finally gonna go off-world? I would say there's probably a good chance. And please, Disney, show us that during the New Republic era, there are more menacing syndicates than the Pikes. There's a literal video game coming out in 2024 whose premise is world-building the seedy underbelly of the galaxy in the OT. Many of those are still around after Episode 6. Before moving on to Aquaman, we also were fortunate enough to hear a rendition of a song he came up with on the set of the Book of Boba Fett with Robert Rodriguez. Both of them are musicians, and quite talented at that. And the song made the interviewer laugh and brought her to tears. And you've gotta love any time Tem sings about Banthas and the Pike Syndicate.
Well, I'm cruising on my Bantha, on the sands of Tatooine.
Fingers crossed, he is coming back. Now in my estimation, Tem seems to have a sensible grip and realistic outlook on the state of Disney right now, because Bob Iger has said he wants to focus on big productions, those are the ones getting the big money, and he wants to prioritize getting Star Wars back in the cinemas. So I think we're in the last days of individual characters getting spin-offs before they cut costs on future renewals. So as I say, it looks pretty unlikely. And this is a great transition to our next segment. Did you know there is an extended version of this scene from Episode 2 Attack of the Clones? When Mace Windu kills Jango Fett, originally, George had Mace go a bit too far with his lightsaber action before going for Jango's head. Thanks to a smooth edit VFX clip that has recently resurfaced, we can see the original Jango death scene on Geonosis, and I've got to say, it's pretty brutal. So no more jibber jabber, let's compare. In the final version we know from the 2002 film, Fett shoots the Reek, turns around, and notices Mace storming towards him. So as you would expect, he shoots at the Jedi Master, which is deflected by his purple lightsaber, before Mace Windu slashes Jango's blaster out his hand, and then proceeds to behead him. But in the extended version, it's a bit more brutal. Mace does not show a single morsel of mercy, so he starts in the same way. But after going for the right hand, he dismembers his entire left arm, which you can see flying off screen, just next to the Reek. Then he stabs Jango in the right leg, before finishing the way we saw in the film. And to make things worse, the emphasis on his head flying out the loose helmet renders this scene crazy graphic, and it exists in both. But you can see why George had to cut this scene down to just the hand and the head. But still, it's no wonder Boba Fett, who saw the whole scene unfold, is still traumatized decades later. when he told Fennec Shand the dreams are back in the Book of Boba Fett, if she was the one to have witnessed them, her rightful response would have been, well yeah, I'm not freaking surprised, mate. Mace Windu knew the rivalry the Jedi had with the Mandalorians, and so maybe he was just being thorough, making sure this guy was dead. But you know something I still find pretty hilarious? Is that earlier in the film he says with a straight face, we're keepers of the peace, not soldiers. Peace my So as we stay on the subject of Mace Windu, today we actually have some pretty awesome news. The new comic Star Wars Revelations has given us a Mace Windu story that is inspired by, get this, Andor, the Narkina 5 prison arc. It's a preview for the upcoming Mace Windu miniseries, and even the prison complex itself has a similar name to the one from the Disney Plus show. Not Narkina 5, but Kevin 8, or maybe it's pronounced Kevan, not Kevin. Just to clarify though, Mace Windu mentions a prison complex which is called Kevin 8, but the one shown at the start of the comic is Devshi Prison Complex. It's interesting they've gone with such a parallel though, because you don't often think of Mace Windu in the same breath as the Andor show by any metric. But in the comic, which is admittedly pretty brief, Mace Windu goes undercover as a prison guard, who looks like Boba Fett. You can't make this up. As George would say, it's like poetry, it rhymes. While almost nothing is known about the specifics of this new comic, it can confidently be asserted that it will take place before or during the prequel trilogy, and it concerns a pretty big prison break. The latter point in particular indicates the story is going to be similar to, as I say, the prison break arc in Andor Season 1, because of the very nature of the prison itself. It resembles Narkina 5. The way that they've drawn it to mirror the same angles and the cinematography of Andor, although I will admit, this one is underwater, and the comic achieves something very similar to Andor. They have the prison guards be pretty brutal, but also there are internal discussions between prisoners, and they welcome new inmates by warning them there is no one to bribe, no one to corrupt. The wording is similar to what was used in the show, and the sense of hopelessness amongst the prisoners. And it seems to me like the Empire was modelling their prisons after the ones of the Republic, although the Empire was more brutal, more cruel, and ensured inmates felt punished. And so finally, my dear friends, are Disney and Lucasfilm finally listening to fans? Well, maybe not for everything, but we'll take any victory we can get. In 2024, as part of the massive initiative celebrating the 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace, we're getting a book called The Living Force, and focuses on all 12 members of the Jedi Council, a visit to the planet of Quen, and something fans have clamoured for in novels for a very long time that we're finally getting is a map printed in every copy of the book to show you where it's taking place. A very simple addition adds a lot of context for readers. Share your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.